The Orlando Magic's schedule is here. So let's break it down, what the Magic are facing this year and what this schedule says about the team. It's time for a live edition of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is August 15th, 2024. You're joining us here for a live version of Locked On Magic as we break down the Orlando Magic's 2024-25 schedule. Thank you to everyone who is joining the show live, or if you're listening to us after the fact, we truly appreciate you listening to the show. If you're listening to us live, please put your questions, comments in the comments section here on YouTube. I'm happy to answer any and all Magic questions as we dive deeper and deeper into the schedule. Really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say and think about the upcoming Magic season, where the trouble spots are in the schedule, and so much more. But before we do any of that, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for. The Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Like so many of you, you probably looked to one thing when the schedule came out just 3 hours ago. And JB Tykoniak, sorry if I mispronounced that name, spells it out for us. More nationally televised games this year. A crazy amount of back-to-backs, actually on the low end of that. We'll get to that in a minute. But a better schedule than last year. Yes, the Orlando Magic are actually going to be on national TV a few times this year. 5 times on traditional national TV, 4 more on NBA TV. We don't count those. The 5 times on national TV, November 1st against the Cleveland Cavaliers up at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. First return to the former Gund Arena, or Quicken Loans Arena, whatever it was called, whatever it used to be called. First time facing the team that beat the Magic in Game 7 3 months ago. The Magic will get, of course, their December 3rd game against the New York Knicks up in Madison Square Garden as part of the NBA Cup. They will play, I believe it is let me get my list here. Sorry about that. I don't have my list prepared. A December 19th home game against the Oklahoma City Thunder will be on TNT because, of course. January 17th in Boston to face the Boston Celtics on ESPN. That is a Friday night. And then February 25th against Cleveland Cavaliers back at the Kia Center. Another rematch from their playoff battle. So 5 times on national TV. And while these games aren't bigger net per se for the team themselves, they're big for the fans. Their perception. It's all about perception. But this schedule, to me, and the way this schedule sets up, is truly about the Magic proving themselves on that bigger stage. There are 5 nationally televised games. There are 5 big games against 5 teams the Magic are competing directly against. The Oklahoma City Thunder and the Orlando Magic are the 2 kind of young teams in the league right now. The 2 young teams that everyone seems most excited about is like that next team to take the next big step. The Celtics are obviously the contenders. The Knicks are budding contenders. The Magic and Cavs were the 4 and 5 in the playoffs last year. These are all games that are meant to test where the Magic are at in comparison to their peers, and whether they are truly ready to play on a bigger stage. That's so much of what is on the line for the Orlando Magic this season, because while those 5 nationally televised games are important and are big, the entire schedule, at least as I wrote it down, as I looked at it, as I began breaking it down, the entire schedule is meant for the NBA to tell the Orlando Magic, prove it. Prove yourself again. Prove that you can do it again. Prove that you are the team you think you are. Because while there are easy stretches. And while there is at least some numbers and some statistics to suggest the Magic have a schedule that will give them advantages, that they'll play a lot of teams with a rested, they'll have the rest advantage in a lot of games this year, according to a positive residual. This is still a challenging schedule that will ask the Magic, are you really that good? And this is how. Again, not just about nationally televised games. This is how. The Orlando Magic will open the season with, I believe it's 16 of their first 25 games on the road. That includes a little 4-game homestand with the NBA Cup games in the middle. So 16 of their first 25 games are on the road, away from the Kia Center. Additionally, 11 of their final 19, pretty much the last 2 months of the season after a season-long homestand in late February, early March, instead of in mid-March like it's been the last couple seasons. 11 of the final 19 games are on the road, including a final 2 road games at Indiana on April 11th and at Atlanta on April 13th. I will repeat this so many times throughout the course of the rest of the offseason and certainly throughout the season. Everything is going to come down to game 82. I am already planning my trip to Atlanta because I know game 82 is going to be vitally important to where the Magic ultimately finish in the standings and how we ultimately view this season. To say the least, Orlando has in the past been able to benefit from meager starts, kind of starts that they can get themselves going and start freshening up before they hit the rough patches in December and January, and then usually home-heavy finishes. Even last year, they had a home-heavy finish until they hit that last week of the season. The Magic have a lot of these opportunities. But this year, it's not easy. And it's, again, not even just that they start a lot on the road and finish a lot on the road. I look to clusters of games where the Magic are going to face championship opponents back to back to back to back. Games that are meant to show, okay, can you handle a champion schedule? Let's take the end of their NBA Cup road trip. The Orlando Magic are going to head up to New York for a week to play the Nets and Knicks. They'll play the Nets twice on November 29th and December 1st up at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Then they got December 3rd at the Knicks, NBA Cup game, national TV game, big game. Back-to-back December 4th at Philadelphia, December 6th at Philadelphia, December 8th versus Phoenix. Then they got their NBA Cup quarterfinal week. They come back from that, December 19th versus Oklahoma City, December 21st versus Miami, December 23rd versus Boston, December 26th versus Miami, December 27th versus New York to begin that Christmas week homestand. One of the longest homestands of the year. That stretch of games, and there'll be 2 more games added, potentially a game against Boston, potentially a game against, probably not a game against Philadelphia there, but potentially a game against Philadelphia, potentially another game against Cleveland. There'll be a couple games added in there, but that is a rough stretch against all playoff teams, against all teams that are fighting for something real, fighting for what the Magic are fighting for. But that's not the only stretch where all these good teams cluster together. There's another stretch of the season in January that's going to determine a lot of the season. This 3-week stretch or 2-week stretch is going to be huge. January 6th at New York. January 9th versus Minnesota. January 10th versus Milwaukee, a home back-to-back. January 12th versus Philadelphia. January 15th at Milwaukee. January 17th at Boston. January 19th versus Denver. That is 7 games, all against teams with championship aspirations, all against teams the Magic have to prove themselves against. And it's not that there aren't other rough spots in the schedule or there aren't other moments where the Magic are going to have to step up to the plate. But these are 2 stretches. These are 2 moments where the NBA is essentially throwing down the gauntlet to Orlando and saying, show us how good you are. Show us that you deserve to be on national TV more, that you deserve to be part of the season story, deserve to be considered a contender in the Eastern Conference. To me, I look at the Orlando Magic schedule to me, I look at this team's schedule and I see a challenge. I see a gauntlet thrown. I see the NBA looking at the Magic and say, prove to us you are worth it. Prove to us you are worth investing in. And that's going to be the challenge all season long. You might remember 2 years ago, Jamal Mosley put down the challenge to his team after the 2022 season, heading into the 2023 season, that it's time to level up. And after that 5-20 start, Orlando played 500 basketball the rest of the way to get to 34 wins. We all exited that season saying, yes, they have leveled up. And there's a different rallying cry for the 2024 season. There's a different mantra, different motto going around. There are different buzzwords and coach words, but the Magic ultimately were asked to level up again. And they obviously did so. They reached the playoffs, won 47 games. Now, though, for real, the Magic are being asked to level up again. Can they be more than just a first-round exit? They can be. They went to Game 7 last year. Can they be more? Because the Magic still have a lot to prove. And we'll talk a little bit more about what they have to prove, plus answer some of your questions about the schedule. There's a couple good ones here that I want to get to. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Magic tickets go on sale tomorrow on Friday, so can't quite get your Magic tickets yet on Gametime, but pretty soon those tickets will start trickling in, and then the NBA season's gonna feel real because you'll be able to get your tickets to the game. And I can tell you, Gametime is the place to go if you want killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and lowest price guarantee to any Magic game or any sporting event, concert, whatever, to anything you want to go see this season. Gametime, I've used Gametime before. It is a great experience. They helped me out with a problem that I had with my tickets in the MLB app, actually. Their customer service was so helpful. Getting seats, getting to the game was so easy. Gametime made the experience so much more enjoyable. They give you last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, or more. So if you're trying to go to SmackDown to see our Tribal Chief on Friday, Gametime is your place to go because, trust me, I went to find tickets. They're quickly selling out at the Kia Center on Friday. Plus, they give you all-in pricing. If you toggle this feature, it shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your next listen, be sure to check out the Locked On NBA podcast. There's no offseason in the NBA. Today's a busy day in the NBA, obviously. And Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. Is available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll dive into some other notes in the schedule here in just a moment, but I want to make sure I get to some of your questions. This is a live show, so if you have questions about anything about the Orlando Magic, be sure to put them in the comments. I am here for you today, and we'll go at least the full 30 minutes of my normal show, but I'll go longer if there are more questions out there. So again, this doesn't have to be just about the schedule coming out, but there were a few good questions. John Patrick Van Pelt asking a few kind of clerical questions I want to get to. Do you know if the Orlando Magic preseason games will be broadcast on Magic Radio Network through the iHeartRadio app? The local broadcast information was not released today. This is normal. This isn't a Bally thing. This is normal. The Magic usually wait a little bit before confirming their local TV broadcast schedule. But as far as I know, all Orlando Magic preseason games are available on the Magic Radio Network. Check your local listings for where that airs. I do not know if that means they will be on the iHeartRadio app. I know that there are some restrictions on that because I've had to try and listen to radio as well. But the games will be available at least on Audio League Pass. If that still, I'm pretty sure that still exists. That is a pretty low, I think it's like a $10 fee for the whole year. But that's how you can get to that. So I don't really have the full answer on that question, but again, local broadcast information will be released probably in the next couple of weeks. A lot of people, no one's asked me this directly, but as far as I understand it, they will still be on Bally Sports Florida this year, or the Magic are not moving off of Bally Sports quite yet. There have been a few teams that have done that as Bally Sports continues to go through their bankruptcy proceedings. But as far as I know, Bally Sports Florida will be the broadcast partner for the Orlando Magic once again, but we'll update that as that comes around. I'll be sure to mention that. Check my social media. When that becomes official, I will announce that. And again, the games on TNT will not be on Bally Sports Florida as well, if you care about the local broadcast. John Patrick also asking, when do you see the city of Orlando hosting the All-Star game? Again, that's not going to happen until Westcourt is built. That is the entertainment complex that the Magic have long been trying to build. They just released some new renderings. They just got an official partner for the hotel that's going to be there. They should be putting shovel into ground on that pretty soon. So don't expect an All-Star game until that is complete. I think the NBA knows that they owe the Magic one because 2012 was such a weird All-Star season. But don't expect that until that's complete. The next question is also from John Patrick. What year do you think the Orlando Magic will be playing on Christmas Day? That's going to be dependent on how good the Magic get. If like the Oklahoma City Thunder were the 1 seed in the West last year, and they're not playing on Christmas. Some of that has to do with Paolo Banchero has to be one of the best players in the league. He has to be a player that is undeniable. Look at Anthony Edwards. Look at how he's playing and how he grew into a superstar player. That demanded attention. So the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think they saw the largest increase in national television games this year. They will be playing on opening night against the Los Angeles Lakers. They will be playing on Christmas. Paolo Banchero has to become an undeniable superstar, someone that people want to watch. And again, getting on national TV 5 times this year is going to be big. If the Magic are playing well, if the Magic are in the conversation, if they're in the story, if they're in the story in the league, if they're competing for the top of the Eastern Conference, more eyeballs will be on those big games, especially early in the year. More eyeballs will be on those games, and then people will start clamoring for more Magic or saying, oh, Magic are my league pass team. That'll get them on national TV more. Like the national TV thing is made up. Like it's not that important. But having said that, it is important to perception and getting attention and being treated like a serious team. And like that's really the main point I'm trying to make with why these stretches of games are so important, because the Magic are a team that should feel like they can beat anybody. Even the Boston Celtics, the Magic should not be afraid of Boston. 7-game series, that's going to be tough. But a Friday night in December, the Magic should feel like they can win that game. They should feel like they should come into every game feeling like they can win. And that's different than anything we've experienced as Magic fans for the last decade. This is a team that is good enough to win every game. Having said that, these are the games they have to win. They have to win these marquee games. And that's what the Magic kind of haven't done yet. Yes, Orlando took Cleveland to 7 games last year. They beat their fair share of good teams. They swept the Nuggets last year. They beat Boston in a marquee Black Friday matchup in the in-season tournament last year. They have plenty of big wins. But when you actually look at the numbers, when you look at the record, the Magic actually struggled in games against teams with records above 500. The Magic are actually 19-28 against teams with a winning record last year. That was the worst mark among all Eastern Conference playoff teams. Orlando feasted on the worst teams in the league. Charlotte lost, Houston lost, notwithstanding. They feasted on those bad teams. And look, you got to be able to do that. Every win counts the same. They all count toward the 47. The Magic earned every one of their 47 wins. But it is fair to say and fair to think, okay, the Magic have to prove that they can do it night in and night out against the best teams in the league, because, those clusters of good teams, that's what championship teams face. Championship teams face good teams all the time. They win those games. They compete in those games. They play on national TV in those games. They're put on national TV in those games back to back to back to back because everyone believes they can win those games. And look, you're probably going to go around 500. Like, you're going to lose to your share of good teams. It's not that they have to win all those games. You go through that January stretch. Again, that's at New York versus Minnesota versus Milwaukee versus Philadelphia, at Milwaukee, at Boston versus Denver. That's 7 games. Going 4-3 in that is a success. That's a win. If the Magic go 4-3 or 5-2, that's a huge victory. You go 3-4, not the end of the world either. That's a tough stretch of games. Those are a lot of really good teams in the middle of the season. We can't predict what injuries are going to be like at this point, but those are games that you have to prove you can win if you're going to be considered a contending team. And again, to me, I look at this schedule and I look at how the games are composed and how things are built. And I see that challenge. I see that gauntlet thrown down to say, okay, here are some tough stretches. Here's some championship level stretches we're going to ask you to go through. How the computer spat that out, I don't know. But those 2 stretches particularly, those are the ones I'm going to be most interested in as because the Magic are going to win their games. Like, they're going to win enough games. They're going to, will they get to 50? I don't know. I'm on record. I think they're going to win about 45 games. I have them kind of in that 44, 45 to 50 range. Like, I think they can win 50 games. Can they maintain their confidence through these difficult stretches? Can they play at that championship level against championship level teams? Those are the questions that this team still has to answer. And if you look back at last season, that's still the big hurdle they have to overcome. They have to be able to beat good teams back to back over and over and over again. And that, to me, is what's exciting about the schedule ahead of the Magic. They're going to have their chances to build up wins, and they're going to have another strong record against bad teams. Plain and simple, you got to beat bad teams. Can't be losing to Brooklyn on your home opener, October 25th. October 23rd, they open in Miami. Frankly, probably can't lose that game. That's a game you should probably win. No offense to our friends in Miami. We'll probably talk to our friends at Locked On Heat at some point before the season begins. You got to win those games. You can't lose to Charlotte. You can't lose to Washington. You can't lose those games. But this is a team that has to be able to win these marquee games if they want to take their next step. And again, that's the path ahead, is they have to level up. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the quirks in the schedule, some other things to think about and chew on. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Look, I love sports. I'm sure you do too. You're listening to a sports podcast. But as the summer winds down, sports are starting to dry up a little bit. We're all waiting for college football and the NFL to begin. FanDuel, though, lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you are in the mood. In fact, they already have futures for the Orlando Magic up, putting their over-under at 47.5 wins. They've already got division odds, putting the Magic as the favorites to win the Southeast Division. They've got championship odds. The Magic are 5th, I believe, in those championship odds, are tied for 4th, really. You can dream up anything you want over at FanDuel. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Okay, we're getting ready to close up shop here. So if you have any questions about anything on the Orlando Magic, be sure to put them in the comment section to get us going. Tell me what game you're looking forward to. I'll go through a bunch of your comments here in just a moment. But I want to get to some quirks, some of the quirks coming up in the schedule here as the Magic get ready to play, as the Magic get ready for their season. Someone mentioned that there's a lot of back-to-backs in the schedule. And you're right, 13 back-to-backs this season. That is actually on the low end for the season. Orlando had 15 back-to-backs last year. They have 13 this year. So that's going to be on the low end of the low end for the Magic or for anyone. They got 5 away-to-away back-to-backs. Those are normal. Those are typical. Pretty good number. They've got 1 away-to-home back-to-back. That's really rare. They got 3 of my hate them home-to-away back-to-backs. Hate those. And they've got 4 home-to-home back-to-backs. So overall, 13 back-to-backs. 13 back-to-backs. I am not losing sleep over that number, and I'm frankly not losing sleep about any of them. There's no like bad back-to-backs. I don't like the Orlando to Memphis back-to-back at the beginning of the season, but at the beginning of the season, maybe you can sustain that and survive that. It's going to be, it's that part of the schedule is looking really, really good. So I really do like that part of the schedule. On top of this, Orlando has the longest road trip is a 6-game road trip out west in late January. Not super crazy that road trip coming up on January 27th at Miami. They probably come home. It's 6 games, 11 days, but they're probably going to come home after that game, the 27th, fly out the 29th to play Portland on the 30th, at Utah, at Golden State, at Sacramento, always ending at Denver on the second night of a back-to-back. Like, that's a schedule loss. But usually what I actually like, so like the first thing that happens when the schedule comes out is I put it in my calendar and I handwrite it. I don't like copy it over or anything. There were no back-to-backs that I looked at and was just like, I don't like that. Or the road trips, I was like, I don't like that. Like, like going to Miami, you get to come home for a couple of days, then you go to Portland. That's fine. Whatever. Last year, like I am pretty sure I pointed out immediately that Houston, Milwaukee back-to-back. And I was just like, that's disgusting. Get that out of my face. Get that away from me. I did not see any back-to-backs like that this year. So there's been 2 kind of conflicting things going on here with the schedule. This is the biggest quirk in the schedule, I think. First is ESPN has the Magic with the toughest strength of schedule in the league among last year's playoff teams. They have a .506 win percentage. And again, that does not include the 2 games that get added into the schedule because of the NBA Cup. So the Magic, they play 5 teams only 3 times. New York, Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Chicago, and Detroit. 2 of those, assuming Orlando does not advance in the NBA Cup, they're going to play 2 of those teams one more time. So there is a chance that they get like a Milwaukee-Boston. And Boston, I think, only comes to Orlando once. Let me double check that. No, Boston. No, they get one more trip to Boston, and then Milwaukee comes to Orlando. I don't know if that would work. I'm sorry, I'm scanning here. Yeah, and then Milwaukee would come to Orlando. There's a potential that the Magic can get an added Milwaukee-Boston game at Boston, home versus Milwaukee. There's a potential for that. Boston's probably going to advance out of the group, so I don't think that's going to happen. But there's a chance the Magic's schedule gets a little beefier and gets a little juicier after the NBA Cup group play is over. But having said that, Positive Residual, which does a lot of analytics on the schedule, actually has the Magic with one of the easiest schedules in the league. And that to me says like how there isn't much variance in schedule difficulty at this point of the calendar. Like everyone's got to play everyone at least, in your conference 3 times. There's very little variance. Like, yes, the Magic only play the Pistons 3 times. That's probably why their schedule seems more difficult. Everybody wants to play the Pistons. Sorry, Detroit. Sorry, Koo. Love you, bud. But the Magic appear to have a lot of games where they have the rest advantage. That was not the case last year. Last year, actually, the Magic, I think, were in the bottom 5 in terms of games with a rest advantage. This year, it seems like the Magic are one of the teams that are going to be able to take advantage of a lot of rest advantages, which means the team is coming in on a back-to-back to Orlando. A lot of teams used to hate the Orlando-Miami back-to-back where, they'd want to play Miami first, then come to Orlando because Orlando wasn't much of a team. Now it's like, oh, God, we got to play Miami-Orlando back-to-back. That's rough. The Florida double is difficult. I don't know how many times teams are playing the Florida double, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Magic are like the second night of a back-to-back for a lot of teams coming from Miami. That's going to be something the Magic can take advantage of. So just a little quirk to keep in mind or think about as we begin to break down the schedule a little bit more. The Magic do have 2 6-game homestands. They play a Christmas homestand. We went through some of those games already. Then they have a 12-day 6-game homestand, February 21st through March 4th. I want to go through those games. February 21st versus Memphis. Memphis will be a good team this year. They're not the pushover they were last year. February 23rd against Washington. February 25th against Cleveland. February 27th against Golden State. And then March 2nd, March 4th versus Toronto. Like I said, there are 19 games in the season. After that, 11 of those final 19 are on the road. The Magic do have a 3-game homestand at the end of March, but they have just 2 home games in April. April 8th versus Atlanta, April 9th versus Boston, so a home back-to-back. Then they go to Indiana, to Atlanta to finish the season. That's kind of the deal with the schedule. Again, it's a schedule. There's 80. We have 80 of the 82 games, but a lot of it's just how it's composed. And frankly, for the first time in a while, I really like how the Magic schedule is composed. I'm not upset about anything in the Magic schedule. There's some nice home back-to-backs, which if you're going to have a back-to-back, frankly, I'd rather it be a home back-to-back, get rid of the travel. You have the fatigue from playing the night before, but you lose the travel. This is a schedule, to me, that is challenging. Don't get me wrong. Those stretches I talked about, I really do think that this is a gauntlet for the team and from the league to say, okay, prove it to us. Prove that you are that good, that you can be a 47-win team again. These are going to be championship stretches. We're going to get to those stretches in the season, and we're going to highlight this is a tough stretch. There's going to be some losses here, but it's important to stay with it, stay engaged, stay together, scratch out some wins, prove that you are at that level, prove that you're at these teams' level, because those teams don't care who they play. They play their game. The Magic have to get to the point where they're that level too, where they're playing their game and they're not worried about what the other team's going to do. That's the beauty of Magic basketball. That's the beauty of what the Magic are at least trying to build. I like that. I like that part. And then the rest of the schedule, frankly, very manageable. I don't see anything crazy. The start's going to be difficult. It's not the most difficult stretch I've ever seen. There's no ridiculous stretch in December that I hate. This is a very manageable schedule for Orlando. And if Orlando can get off to a good start with their road heavy start, if they could survive that December stretch, survive that January stretch, they are going to be in a very good spot to accomplish their goal. And they've said it before. Their goal is to get home court advantage. They said it after the season ended. They want to be a home court advantage team. So a lot to like, I think, in this Magic schedule. The Magic do get their chance in the national spotlight. 5 nationally televised games, 4 more than they had last year. That's 5 times what they had last year. All of them very winnable games, good showcases for this team, and a good chance to be put on the national stage. There is a lot to like. Before I log off, I want to get to your questions. So if you're watching the show, please drop your Magic questions. I'll answer them here for the time being. John Patrick Van Pelt back with another question says, what do you think of the new NBA Amazon deal? Look, like most fans, I am a little disappointed that they were not able to get something done with TNT, with TBS, with Warner Brothers Discovery. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of the business. Warner Brothers Discovery, frankly, dropped the ball on this. I think the NBA is being very forward-looking, trying to be with a streamer. Amazon has done a great job with the WNBA. They've done a great job with the NFL. I think it's going to be good. And ultimately, there's a lot of money coming in. The money was too much to pass up. The NBA is trying to stay on the forefront of where eyeballs are going to be. That's why they're getting the Peacock deal too with NBC. Ultimately, I really like that the league is creating more access to their games. I imagine NBA League Pass is going to be going to Amazon Prime or Peacock here in the very near future, that there's going to be a deal struck that one of those two streamers is going to house NBA League Pass, and they're just going to kind of outsource that thing to someone else, because the NBA app's been, frankly, not good. It's been a little bit of a disaster, to be quite honest. I like that. I don't know enough about the economics of the business to say this, but I do like that the proposed schedule means we will have a nationally televised game every single night in the NBA. And whether that gives you more access than, say, NBA TV does or not, I think that's ultimately good. And I hope the NBA uses that to say our league is strong as a whole. We don't need to lean on the Lakers or Superstar X. Look, the Lakers are going to get 35 national TV games every year. That's just the reality. Even when they're bad, they draw eyeballs. But I'm hoping that having constant exposure to the NBA, and I'm hoping that these new TV partners, especially NBC and Amazon, treat the league as more than just the markets and treats the league as the league. and says everyone in the league is important. If you're good, we will talk about you. I joked about this during the ESPN broadcast of the schedule release. The Magic did not get mentioned once until about 40 minutes into the show. And look, I get it. There were other storylines to follow. You want to start with the big marquee days. You want to start with your Christmas games, your opening night games. Magic aren't in those. I get that. I'm fine with that. But us Magic fans are always a little bit of attention starved, and I think rightfully so in a lot of ways. But I think that the league needs to treat itself like the NFL. Like every team is important. And yeah, sure, maybe the Cowboys, the Giants, some of those more established teams get a little bit more attention than otherwise. But, they made the Packers a big deal in Green Bay. Like, why can't the NBA make Milwaukee big? They got Giannis. That's all they need. Paolo should be a bigger star. And I'm hoping that the NBA is, preparing to look at itself in a different way than they have before. So just I'm excited for the new TV deal. I think it's ultimately going to be very good for the league. I'm disappointed that TNT couldn't get something done. Blame Dave Zaslav. He's been a disaster for Warner Brothers Discovery. It's not a surprise to me that he lost his most valuable product. Here is RUAB asking, what do you think about our 3-game stretch in the West Coast record prediction? So that 3-game stretch he is talking about, the Magic take their first West Coast road trip. It's a very short road trip. After their NBA Cup home game against the Sixers on November 15th, they go November 18th at Phoenix, November 20th at the Clippers, November 21st at the Lakers. That's not necessarily a difficult road trip, but I do think that's probably going to be a 1-2 road trip. The Magic have had, Magic are like kind of up and down with Phoenix. It's been a while, I think, since they've won in Phoenix. That one's a 50-50 game for me. I think they can beat the Clippers, even if Kawhi's playing. The Clippers, I think, are going to be still figuring some things out. Back-to-back against the Lakers is going to be tough, especially early in the season when LeBron and all them are engaged and not injured yet, not kind of beaten down by the season quite yet. Look, the Magic are capable of going 3-0. Magic 1-2 is probably the expectation. 2-1 would be a victory. I think that is a nice little road trip. I like the little short burst road trips rather than kind of longer road trips. But I want to mention again, this isn't a very difficult stretch for the Magic. This is actually the beginning of a very difficult stretch. Orlando finishes a 4-game homestand with the Sixers. They go 3 on the road out west. Home versus Detroit, at Charlotte, home versus Chicago, and then that 5-game road trip at Brooklyn, at New York, at Philadelphia, that starts that really tough stretch in December. So you're right. It is important for the Magic to get on the right page early. It's important that the Magic do well on this road trip so that they're set up for the more difficult road ahead for them. This is a very winnable road trip. I think that no one's scared of the Lakers, outside of LeBron and AD. No one's scared of the Sun. The Suns have star power. They'll be better this year. No one should be that scared of the Clippers. First game at Intuit Dome, maybe got to get used to some of the sight lines there. But overall, this is a very manageable West Coast road trip. That's what I like about West Coast road trips, when they're manageable. So we'll see about that. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough road trip, no doubt. A lot of questions coming in about the TV deals. I'm gonna get to some of the. I'll repeat some of my answers there. Mr. J asked, "What's going on with the local TV? Are we still on Bally?" As I mentioned earlier, the Magic typically do not announce their local TV schedule with the schedule, so they haven't officially announced what they're doing local TV wise. I have no reason to believe they're not going to still be on Bally Sports Florida this year. Some teams have left. Some teams have gone over the air. I do suspect that the Magic will stay on Bally Sports Florida for another year, but they will announce that in the coming weeks. Next question is, with the Amazon deal, will there be a local blackout? My understanding is the Amazon Thursday night games will be local blackout. It will be Amazon exclusive. There will be Peacock exclusive games as well, is my understanding of things too. So I mentioned I like that the national schedule is there's going to be a national game every night, but I do think the downside for consumers, for customers, is that does mean you will have to subscribe to some of these outlets and some of these platforms in order to access these games. The NBA is also doing NBC regional games. I think it's Sunday nights. I think the plan is Sunday night after NFL. You have a basketball night in America, Sunday night NBC game. I believe Monday the plan is to do a Peacock game, and I think that would be a Peacock exclusive game. Tuesday, you would have an NBC regional game. The idea behind this is you have an 8 o'clock East Coast game and then an 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock West Coast game. And those would be only exclusive to their region. So NBC wouldn't do a doubleheader like they do on TNT. You have an 8 o'clock game kind of to your local time. So there'd be, if the Magic are playing in Los Angeles, that game might be on local TV just because it would only be accessible on Peacock. But you would essentially have access to those games only in there. Wednesday's your typical ESPN, Thursday's Amazon, Friday's ESPN, Saturday ABC night game. That's my understanding of what the deal is going to be. So yeah, I think there's a lot of questions about the TV deal next year. We'll probably get more definitive answers as the season progresses. We just know the deal is done. They're probably waiting for the litigation with Warner Brothers Discovery to finish before they kind of unveil what that broadcast plans are and what the days are. But that's the rumors going around. Soul Train asks, if every young guy takes a step forward in their development, what does the Magic team look like to you? If everybody takes a step forward in their development, I do think that this is a team that is capable of making it to the second round. My fear right now with the Olympics, or my fear right now with this Magic team, sorry, I was just reading down on comments. My fear right now for this Magic team, or the way fans are looking at this Magic team, is saying, oh, they got to a game 7. Obviously, the next step for them is to win a playoff series. And that is right. Like that is a thing. That is absolutely the right notion to have. But I would also say Cleveland was probably a very good matchup for them. Say Orlando is the 5 seed again and they face Milwaukee. Orlando's just a little bit more athletic than Milwaukee. There's definitely a lot there, but Milwaukee's given Orlando a lot of problems in the past. Or say they got to play Philadelphia. So much, I just want to caution this. So much of the playoff success the Magic had last year was based on the matchup. Cleveland was a weird team last year. And Jared Allen got hurt in the series. That helped Orlando. We can't deny that it helped Orlando because Jared Allen was killing the Magic on the interior. But if everyone takes a step forward, I absolutely see the Magic being competitive, being a team that can win a home court advantage in the Eastern Conference playoffs, be a team that can win a playoff series. Now, whether that is good enough to win a second round series and get to the conference finals, that's going to be matchup dependent. That's going to be dependent on just how much better everyone gets. We could talk all we want about Franz being a better shooter. We can talk all we want about Wendell Carter being healthy and rebounding better. We can talk all we want about Jalen Suggs being a consistent three-point shooter, or the bench guys or the rookies taking a step up. This whole project depends on how much better Paolo Banchero is. This whole project depends on how much better Franz Wagner is. If Paolo Banchero is shooting threes at 40%, like he was in the playoffs, if his turnovers go down from 3 per game to 1.5 or even 2 per game, that's the kind of stuff that will change this team. That's the kind of stuff that will elevate this team. Look, it's no secret. The Magic's offense is bad. They've been in the bottom 10 in offensive rating every year since Dwight Howard left. They were the worst offensive team that made the playoffs last year. Their offense has to be better. That means they have to shoot better. That means they have to turn the ball over less. That means they have to be better in transition. That means they have to be more efficient with their shot selection, with their shooting. They have to be better on offense. They have to actually score points. And that's the great mystery. And that's, frankly, all on Paolo Banchero's shoulders. Again, I hate to put it only on him and only on Franz, but you're as good as your stars are. And so ultimately, like, what the Magic are trying to figure out is, what do our 2 stars, our 2 max players, because Franz is a max player, Paolo's a max player. What do our 2 max players need to succeed? And once the Magic figure that part out, that's when we'll start seeing them make more aggressive moves. And that's kind of what this year is going to be about, is figure out, okay, what's the next move that our team needs to make? Where are we failing? Where are we falling short? That's kind of the next step in this process. And so I am like, honestly, like I am divorcing like progress from results. Yes, the Magic have to make the playoffs. I'm not saying don't make the playoffs. Magic absolutely have to make the playoffs. For this to be a successful season, the Magic have to make the playoffs. They have to be competitive again in their first round series. They probably have to win their first round series. Success is definitely defined by that, but failure is not necessarily defined by that. Failure would be missing the playoffs. Failure would be getting swept. Failure would be Paolo Banchero taking a step back or Franz Wagner taking a step back and not looking like potential all-star players. Those would be like, okay, we got some issues here. Right now, this team is still trying to figure out a little bit what they have. They have ideas. They have a proof of concept, but there's still a lot more for this team to learn. And again, like this is going to be a challenging schedule for the Magic, and there's going to be moments where we're going to really learn before the playoffs even begin what this team is really made of. And I'm really excited for those two stretches, that December stretch, that January stretch. I am really excited for it because I think that's going to be just such this massive proving ground for the team. Here's another question from Jordan. We need more two-man game from the starters. Why did our backups have better two-man game? I think a lot of that had to do with Wendell Carter just really being off all year. Wendell was dealing with the injury all season long and just really, really struggled in the paint. Like, you could kind of see it. He was rolling a lot more. He was kind of clearing the paint. He wasn't aggressively crashing the lane. That's what Mo Wagner does really well. And on top of that, some of that is the true point guard, Markelle Fultz, was on the second unit. Joe Ingles is an excellent pick and roll player. He was with the second unit. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are still learning how to play pick and roll. That's not really their game, actually. They don't run a lot of pick and rolls with those two. If anything, they're running pick and rolls more to create switches and mismatches so they can create isolations and ways for them to get downhill. They run a lot more dribble handoffs and motion stuff off of like Wendell Carter rather than straight pick and rolls. So, I think the Magic hopefully are hoping that Wendell Carter is healthy again. And if he is healthy again, he will be able to move the ball a little bit better, catch the ball in the paint a little bit better, maybe be willing to be more physical. I think Wendell's health was just such a huge factor last year with him. And hopefully he is healthy. Hopefully the hand is feeling better. And that's going to put him in a better position to be more involved in the offense and to be more of a weapon, be a more versatile weapon than he was last year. I mean, I have this article saved. I haven't quite decided when I'm going to write it or I'm going to talk about it on here, but I honestly, like, as fun as last year's season was, I kind of think the Magic underachieved last year. Like, hear my argument out here. Wendell Carter was hurt all year long. They played without a center. Jalen Suggs had to figure out how to play point guard. They left games on the table with the losses to Charlotte and Houston late in the season. It almost feels like the Magic should have done more. And I think, I think a lot of the Orlando players had that healthy perspective when they said, yeah, if we would have won that Charlotte game or we would have won that Sacramento game or those couple games maybe we dropped in January, we would have had home court advantage in a series where the home team won all 7 games. I think they got that perspective that every game is going to be important. I want to repeat this so much. Every game is going to be important. The difference between the 2 seed and the 7 seed is going to be 2 games. Like, I am not joking about that. I have got at Atlanta, April. Let me make sure I have the date right. I don't have it circled quite yet. I have that game at Atlanta, April 13th. I almost said April 15th. I have that game at April 13th circled on my calendar. I am planning to be there. Life pending. I'm planning to be there because that game is going to be huge. And frankly, I'm glad it's Atlanta and not like Milwaukee or Philadelphia like it was last year. I remember sitting here when the schedule came out and I saw Milwaukee was the last game of the season. And I was just like, and I saw it was like Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Milwaukee. I sat here and was just like, oh man, that's going to be so tough to ensure that we get in that 7-8 game. Guess what? That game, that Milwaukee win prevented them from getting to the play-in tournament. And I have the feeling game 82 is going to be exactly like that. And Atlanta's going to need that win too. Like, Atlanta is going to be fighting for the 7-8, fighting for 8, maybe 9 or 10. They're going to be in that race too. So that's not an easy win. Atlanta is a tough team to play. I know they don't have DeJounte Murray anymore, but that's always been a tough team for Orlando. That's going to be That's going to be a big game. Plain and simple. That's going to be a big game. And every game is going to matter a whole lot this season. Like all 82 games are going to count for this Magic team. And that was something they talked about at exit interviews this year. They understand that too. Rafa Casanova asking, what do you think Franz's shot needs? More arc, less dip. Less dip. I didn't phrase that as a question. I think he just needs confidence. To be honest, I think it's just about repetition and confidence with him. I am not one to criticize players for their shot form. They got to this point, obviously. Franz's shot is released a little bit at the chin. I think focusing on where that release point is would go a long way for him. I think sometimes he has like a bit of a Sean Marion arc to a shot. And if you've ever tried shooting like Sean Marion, it can be a little bit difficult to create backspin and get the good bounce that you need. I think with Franz is, we know he can make the shots. Like he's a great free throw shooter. He has stretches where he makes threes like really well. It's just about confidence and repetition. And then doing it at game speed. I feel like there are times when he's rushed and that throws off his mechanics a little bit. But then he misses a lot of open shots when he has time to kind of set the ball up how he wants it to. So I think it's really about figuring out what a good shot feels like, what a made shot feels like for him, and then repetition and confidence in it. For whatever reason, I think he's lost confidence in the shot. Again, I don't want to verge into like Markelle Fultz. It's all mental thing, but I think a lot of it's mental. Like he can do it. Like I firmly believe he can do it. There's nothing to suggest he can't make those shots. He makes every other shot. He is like someone mentioned in the comments here. He is stronger. He is more aggressive. He is more assertive. He is more confident in every part of his game. But something about that 3-point line, like I know it does for me. Like I tend to think differently, but I'm not an NBA player. Something about that 3-point line has thrown him off. And I would love to see, it's all on him. Like I trust that he will figure it out. I suspect I don't think he will get back to 35, 36% like he was his first 2 years. He's just got to get back to 32, 33. Like that'll go such a long way. And look, it's going to be a process. It's not going to be a 1-year fix. It's going to be a couple years before he's back to where like, okay, he's fine. This year it's just about get back to reasonable. Like, Jalen Suggs is able to get to reasonable in one summer. Just get back to reasonable. He's got 7 more weeks before training camp to get there. No reason to think he can't. No reason, he's going to put the work in. Like he knows what he has to do. And so to me, it's just repetition and confidence. Like I wish there was something more. I don't see anything crazy with the shot. The form looks good. For him, his release point's a little bit low. It's a little bit of a chinny shot, but that's how he shoots. I'm not going to tell him that, he's gotten this far with that shot and he's done well with that shot. So it's just about repetition within his mechanics and being confident that it's going to go in. One more question from Soul Train here. It's wild how much can change between now and the trade deadline. If the Magic are somehow a top 3 team, could they be buyers at the deadline with their 2 first-round picks in 2025? Absolutely. The Magic are buyers now. There is not a situation where they're a seller. They actually really, like, one of the quiet, sneaky things they did this summer, both Mo Wagner and Gary Harris, because of the kind of contracts they signed, have implicit no trade clauses. They waived both of them. So they're both eligible to be traded this year if the Magic want to trade them. The Magic, I think, are better set up for trades now than they were in the past. Obviously, we got to see what Jalen Suggs' contract number comes in at. Paolo's going to get his max this summer. So the Magic are kind of aligning their books, and they're aligning them to make that all-in move. Now, to that point, if the Magic are somehow a top 3 team, don't expect like a major change. Jeff Weltman is very big on continuity. He believes it's valuable for the team. If they're playing well and they're a top 3 team at the trade deadline, they're not trading anybody. They're gonna stick with what they got. They're gonna, unless there's like an obvious move that makes them better that won't cost them a ton or cost them players that they're okay giving up. Jeff Weltman isn't gonna mess with the chemistry if they're playing well. He said it this summer, frankly. Continuity is only valuable if you're winning. Well, if the Magic are winning, they're not going to disrupt the continuity that they have. They're going to stick with the players that they got until they hit that road bump. And so, maybe this is the road bump year. Again, I'm serious about this. Divorce progress from results. The Magic could be a better team, could have a better season, and be the 6th seed this year. And that's okay. That's not the end of the world. But it's going to, they're kind of, as like our friend Devin Kennedy always says, they're kind of running their own race. They're kind of saying, okay, we're going to worry about ourselves. We're not worried about what our competition is doing. We're not worried about anything else. We're going to run our race. We're going to be us. We're going to do us here. And that's why the Magic are buyers. They're going to be looking, they should be looking to aggressively improve this team. They are knocking on the door of contending for a championship. 2030 isn't crazy. Alex Martins is going to be a prophet if they win before 2030. It's not crazy. They're one move away, depending on how good Paolo and Franz get. That's what everything depends on. But they, and again, I think they should be aggressive at the draft. They don't need 2 more rookies. Unless, there's someone crazy good, they don't need 2 more rookies. They're going to barely be able to play Tristan Da Silva and Jet Howard this year. The Magic have to be aggressive looking for ways to improve, but they're not going to sacrifice where they're at. They're not going to sacrifice their foundation in order to get there. If that makes sense. It's hard to predict right now. We don't know how the season's going to play out. Again, I don't think they're interested in Trae Young. I don't think they're super interested in Anthony Simons. We'll see how the Jalen Suggs at point guard works out, if that requires them to go do something. But there's a lot more that can happen here before February. But, we'll see, obviously. I am running low on time here at 56 minutes. Unless there are any last-minute questions, I'm going to go into my closing spiel here. I want to thank you all for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the Film Sound podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can, of course, find more on the Orlando Magic and the latest on the Orlando Magic at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Follow us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. Always keep the conversation going at OMagicDaily or at PhilipRR_OMD. And if you want even more on the Orlando Magic, you should check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. Thank you again for making Locked On Magic your first listen today or whenever you're listening to us. Now go check out the Locked On NBA podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NBA in the description, so you don't need to search. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I actually have to add the link to the description, so it's not there yet, but it'll be there if you're listening on the replay. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Thank you, everyone who joined the live broadcast. We'll hopefully do another live broadcast before the season starts. Try and do this a little bit more often. I like getting the interaction with you all. Truly, truly, truly appreciate all those who joined live. If you didn't, still want to ask a question, leave a comment. Again, tweet me at PhilipR_OMD. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Have a great weekend. We'll be back Monday with another episode of Locked On Magic.